purpose of our congregation is to seek the well-being of our neighborhood, the well-being of our city. I want to thank a couple of Lakeshore folks for helping out this evening. Up in the sound room is Larry Sims. Thank you, Larry. And greetings. At the back is Jesse Lucas. Again, it's always good to welcome the neighborhood. If it's your first time here, you want to know a little bit about us. There's some material in the back of the narthex. Talk to me. Maybe one of the things you'd be interested in is our congregation voted 2 weeks ago to become a sanctuary congregation. We don't know all that means, but that's the side we want to be on. So I am going to turn it over to one of the neighborhood leaders, David Flack.
David Flack, I, along with Eric Hughes, standing over here, are co-chairs of Grand Lake Neighbors, which is the community organization that represents this part of town. You happen to be sitting in Police Beat 16Y, and right across the street is the start of Police Beat 4. No, I just said it backwards. You happen to be sitting at 16X. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I still can't get the beat straight. 16X, and across the street is 14Y, and those are the two beats that our neighborhood represents. We do lots of things. We do building safety issues. We pay attention to the vitality of the commercial districts on Grand and Lakeshore. We do neighborhood cleanups. We do a lot of stuff. So if you're interested in us, there are sign-up sheets outside in the narthex. We are always welcoming new folks who have energy to work on betterment for the neighborhood. So glad you could come tonight. We are going to turn the meeting over to Abel Guillen, and he's going to introduce Venus Johnson and Kirkpatrick. Abel.
Thank you, David. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Abel Guillen. I have the honor of representing District 2 that includes very diverse neighborhoods throughout the city. I go all the way out to San Antonio, Eastlake, the Grand Lake area, Trussville, Crocker, Chinatown. I even have downtown Oakland. So it's a pretty diverse district, and it's always an honor to serve the constituents of District 2. And I've been in office for about 1.5 years, almost going on 2 years. And the persistent issue that keeps on coming up is public safety. There's a poll that was done recently by the city. And for the first time, at least in recent memory, housing and homelessness is the #1 issue on the voters' minds this go around. Number 2 is crime and public safety, and then of course education. That's the first time that we see that flip-flop between housing and homelessness and crime. But I think a lot of the issues in the neighborhood, they're really related. I wanted to thank you all for being here. I hope that this information session, this town hall, is informative and productive, and I hope that people get more engaged with NCPC and actually show up also to City Hall to be advocates for the things that you want to see in this budget process. I want to recognize that former Councilmember Pat Kernahan is here. Thank you, Pat, for being here. And I want to recognize also my Chief of Staff, Richard Bryan, is here. We have the restrooms are back towards where you came in on the left and to the right, if anybody needs the facilities. I wanted just to take a moment to really express my gratitude and appreciation to Pastor Hopkins for opening up the sanctuary here today. He's always been an integral part of the community, and what some of you may not know is that the ceasefire meetings, which is one of the crime-fighting strategies that we have here in the city of Oakland, are actually hosted by Pastor Hopkins at Lakeshore Baptist Church, mostly because it's sort of a neutral area. And so this has been sort of the go-to place where OPD and the ceasefire program have cooperated with Pastor Hopkins. So thank you so much, Pastor, for your continued support. Yes, there's a call tomorrow night. I wanted to leave plenty of time for questions for the Chief. I see the Chief is here also. Chief, if I can invite you to come up here, and Venus, if you come up also. Let me go ahead and introduce Chief Kirkpatrick. She is our new chief. I think she's been on the job for 3.5 months. Not quite that long.
3 years.
3. Well, welcome, Chief Kirkpatrick. So much for being here and taking this invitation to meet with the constituents of District 2. Really appreciate that. We also have Venus Johnson, who's the Public Safety Director for the Office of Mayor Libby Schaaf. She is an Oakland native and formerly worked with then Attorney General Kamala Harris, now Senator Harris, working on public safety issues. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Chief Kirkpatrick and give us maybe about 5 to 7 minutes each, and then we're going to open it up for questions if that works. So if everybody could hold tight on your questions after the presentations, Eric, where's Eric? Eric is here. He's going to go around with the microphone and encourage you to ask questions. So we know a lot of people sometimes want to ask or make a lot of statements, and you can do that at the next meeting. But this meeting, we want to limit it to really asking questions from our new police chief and our public safety chief here. So let me turn it over to Chief Kirkpatrick. Thank you so much.
Made a commitment, and it's something that I do enjoy, and that is coming out to the community. And this evening, I'm going to do everything I can to answer the questions that you pose to me. Hopefully, if I don't know the information immediately, I should have some resources available that should be able to answer any questions or concerns. But I want you to also have an opportunity on the front end to hear from Ms. Johnson. She's excellent. And we partnered a lot in making some public presentations and answering questions for you. So I'm actually going to turn it over to her, and then we'll open it up to y'all, okay? So here you go.
So the Chief and I do a tag team. We have a little road show that we're actually been on for the last couple of months. But good evening, everyone. My name is Venus Johnson. I am the Public Safety Director in Mayor Libby Schaaf's office. And so I really focus on the policy work around the city, around safety issues and some criminal justice reform issues and relationships between the police department and the community as well. So it's a pretty big umbrella. But I actually used to live in this district on Erie Street, which is about 2 blocks up. So I lived there for, I think maybe 2 or 3 years and absolutely loved it. So it was nice it's nice to be back home in general, but to be back to where I lived for a couple of years. The focus of my work really has been trying to just get a sense of the landscape, I would say. I started January 9th, and I was with the Attorney General's office for 3 years. So coming back home and just getting a lay of the land of where Oakland sat with our public safety kind of policy and our challenges, and then taking my statewide lens and looking at how we compare. What best practices can we borrow from where we're doing great, and we're doing great in a lot of places, but there's always room for improvement. And so I have been looking at really the root causes more so of where we have challenges in public safety, because if you handle the root causes, or absenteeism, truancy in school, looking at safe environments for communities to be in, the dumping, right, the blight that happens, looking at safe alternatives for youth and employment, right, looking at the holistic approach that actually is better to invest on the front end than paying the price on the back end. Also, obviously, there's an enforcement piece that goes along with it. But as a society, I think we've all come to the place where we can't arrest and prosecute our way out of things, right? We have to actually address the root causes of safety, and looking at how as a city we stand up for those issues and invest in those issues as well. And so as a holistic way, that's kind of what I've been looking at. I've worked with your district Councilmember here on looking at, I know he's very passionate about CSEC issues, and so I've worked with his office a little bit so far on some of those issues, and I know we will continue to partner in other areas. sexually exploited youth. So really looking at the challenges around that in the city. And Oakland is not alone, nor is it unique, but there are, I think, some strategies that we can look at to work on those quality of life issues as well for some communities. So other than that, I think we can open it up for questions if that's okay.
Folks, I'm going to hold the microphone for you, and please talk right into the end of the microphone, maybe a half an inch away, something like that. So.
Hi, I live in the neighborhood. I'm Caroline Guillen, and I started the farmer's market here. And I'd like to know, what is the most challenging thing that you have faced in Oakland since you started? And what has been the easiest thing for you so far?
I guess that's since I'm not from Oakland. And by the way, I would just assume everybody does know, but you know I'm a Southerner, in case you don't know. I'm from the South in Memphis, Tennessee. That's where I was raised, and that's where my family is. And I started policing in Memphis, Tennessee 35 years ago. So in 1982 is when I became a police officer. So the easiest thing has been being embraced by this community. This is probably one of the most welcoming, people-oriented, supportive communities that I could possibly have had the pleasure of being a part of. So I think becoming an Oaklander, I do live in Oakland, I'm proud to live here, and that's been the easiest thing. I think the greatest challenges is because I don't have a foundation here, there are pluses and minuses. When you're an outsider, the pros are that I come with no attachments. So I can make my decisions very independently. That's a very good positive. I'm independent of any pressures. The negative is that I don't know anybody. And so I don't have an institutional knowledge. So those are the greatest challenges, not having the institutional knowledge. It's a good and a bad.
So I'll just answer briefly. First of all, thank you for starting the farmer's market. It's amazing and I miss it. And I may want to pick your brain about how to do it in other parts of the city. So you might have just volunteered for something. I think the most exciting and great part is just being home. I was born and raised in the city, and the city made me who I am. And so to be able to give back in this way is very rewarding. The challenges, I would say, there are so many good things happening. How do we leverage them all, and how do we really shine a light on all the good work that is happening? I think for me, the coordination, sometimes the work is really done in silos. And so for me, trying to break down those silos, which people are very open to, but sometimes you kind of need someone to push the door open so everyone can walk in together. But I would say if I had to say it was a challenge, it would be that.
Hello, Chief. Peter Turner, Lakeshore Homes Association. We met about 3 weeks ago. We like to demonstrate. We do like to walk down the middle of the street and have our opinions expressed. These peaceful meetings have been hijacked by out-of-towners, and I'd like to know what we can do, what you can do to put a clamp on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. It's one of the things that is a part of the rich fabric and history of Oakland. Not being from here, and first of all, sometimes when you're from a place, you don't always have the eyes that outsiders have. So, Oakland is a city of prominence in this country. It is definitely a city of prominence. When something happens in Oakland, heads turn. So a part of that prominence is that rich history of protest, okay? Now, you're not going to find many chiefs in this country who's going to say this, but it is something I like and what attracted me to Oakland. I believe in the fact that our democracy is strong because we can oppose our government. We can have a voice of opposition. So having said that, I am a chief who welcomes the protest. I welcome it. Now listen to the caveat, because this is the important thing. There is a big difference between protest and riot. I am also want to be very clear with our community that no one under my leadership will be allowed or tolerated to damage property or hurt another person. That is not a voice of opposition. That is not protest. And so that won't be tolerated. And the directions I would give commanders is do not allow that to happen. Now, you make the reference that outsiders come in and hijack protests. We're very aware of that. It's particularly anarchists who come in, and the goal of the anarchist is to hijack the protest. And their intent is destruction. We do know who our anarchist is, and most recently I spent 31 years in the city of Seattle, which is the home of anarchy. And the anarchists basically come out of Oregon. And they have spent a lot of their time in the Washington State community. So for y'all to have anarchists come in is a relatively new thing for you, but it's not for me. So we do pay attention, we do know about our anarchists, and we watch for that. So it's a good question.
Okay, this is a kind of, my name is Linda Roman and I live on Walker Avenue, corner. This is kind of a specific question, but on next door, what is it, Lakeshore, Grand Lake, next door, someone was talking about the fact there were a lot of police on the corner of Grand and Lakeshore, I believe, and Cheney, Grand and Cheney. And then someone said, oh, that's because there's a crack house. Now, I don't know if that were kidding or not, but I'd like to know, is there a crack house on Rand or Cheney? And if so, what will you do about it?
Okay, I want y'all to probably notice the officers over here, okay? These are officers that are a part of your district. So can y'all talk to that? Sarge, can you speak to it? Come on up here. Y'all come on up here. First of all, I want to introduce y'all. Come on up here. I think we do our best to have our officers stay in certain geographic locations so that you get to know them. So Sergeant, I'm going to turn it over to you, okay?
William Abel, for those of you who haven't met, I'm actually the Community Resource Sergeant for this side over here. And regarding your question, ma'am, the particular location, now I'm not formally aware of a residence in that particular location at this time that's involved in narcotic-related activity. But here's what we do when the community expresses concerns like this lady right here. So what I'll do is I'll go back and then I will look at calls for service in that area. I'll also conduct file checks with our other teams, coordinate with like our crime reduction team, and see if in fact there have been drug-related issues in that area. If there have, then we identify these homes that we consider nuisance properties. And then we go from there, we work with the city attorney's office based on a code that's called 11570 of the Health and Safety Code. And when in fact we find out that there is a residence in our community that is actively engaging in illicit narcotic activity, and they're actually subject to that code, which means that they could be potentially severely fined by the city or even evicted if they're a renter. And that's actually what my division does. And I'll provide everybody here with my email address so that you guys can contact me directly with their concerns over narcotics residences. They're obviously a tremendous blight and they encumber the safety of our community. So please get in contact with me and we'll go ahead and deal with it accordingly.
Did y'all get his name?
No, spell it, please.
Sergeant
William Abel.
Febble. Okay, B as in boy, E-L. Okay, guys, come over here, all of y'all. Introduce yourselves to your folks.
Hey everyone, I'm Officer Dongaro. I've had the pleasure to meet some of you. For some of you, this is my first time. A little about myself. I am the Beat 16 Community Resource Officer. For those of you that don't know, Beat 16 is north of MacArthur and east of Lakeshore. So everything on the right-hand side of Lakeshore is my responsibility to help you with. So part of what I do is I take all your concerns and issues you're having. I will try and solve them myself. I will as well pass them down to patrol officers in the area and the district that you work or that you live in. So they are aware of too that everything that's going on that we can help you with. I can't emphasize enough how much we need you guys' help as well to get things done. Just a quick example about that is burglaries, big problem for everybody. Last year when I was in patrol, we had a citizen call in, said that there was 2 males at her door ringing her doorbell. She didn't know them, so she didn't answer. About 5 minutes later, the same thing happened. We all know what they're doing, right? They're trying to figure out if somebody's home because they're thinking that they might want to go in. She called us, she gave a really good description of them. Myself and other patrol officers responded to the area. We found them, 2 matching the description. Now, we can't arrest them because they didn't actually commit a crime that day. But what we can do is stop and talk to them and identify them. So that's what we did. About a week later, an email came out from our department, from our investigations division saying, hey, this is surveillance video from a burglary we had in Oakland. Guess who it was? Which 2 guys were on it? Same 2 guys. I was able to respond and say, you should look at this and this name. Sure enough, it was them. They put a warrant out for their arrest. They ended up getting arrested for a string of burglaries. Now, it's not perfect. I admit that. But we will work as hard as we possibly can to help everybody here.
Good evening, I'm Sergeant Nicholas Calange, C-A-L-O-N-G-E. Eventually you're going to wish there were 2 sergeants like Smith or Johnson for your 2 districts. Am I correct in that I heard that this was a combined community meeting between 2 different beats? Okay, so I will be the North Oakland Community Resource Officer Sergeant for District 2, as we call it, Area 2. Officer Keys is probably familiar to many of you. He'll be transitioning away from our squad in the next few weeks, but we are actively seeking a replacement worthy of your beat, which is no small task, but I'm confident we can find someone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. This is literally my 3rd day on the job for this position. So I don't have a lot of specific things to share with you. I'm familiar with what a crack house generally looks like. So if you, as truly the best part of our city is the community, not the police department, if you see something that looks fishy, such as higher activity during certain hours of the day, there's usually an increase in sort of unrelated but connected crimes like vandalism or dumping of illegal items. If you see things like that regarding a specific property, let either of us know. Just type a bunch of letters into the keyboard until our names pop up. And we will certainly address it. We have a good working relationship with cross-district lines, despite what you might hear. And so we'll be able to coordinate on a lot of stuff for this neighborhood. So thank you very much for having me.
I do want you to introduce yourself for everybody. Where are you going, by the way?
CRT.
Oh, are you? Okay, Crime Reduction Team is what CRT stands for. So here you go.
I'm Officer Gabriel Kiza. Point out the fault of that. Born and raised in Oakland. Still live in Oakland. Thank you. I've been in CR02 for about 6 months. And I will be transitioning over to CRT, but I will be staying in the district. So if there's any issues that come up specifically with drugs, that would be our specialty. So you can still reach out to me via my email, or if anybody has my card, they have my phone number. Just let us know, and we can set some kind of operation up or try to handle it whatever way it takes.
Did you spell your name? Yeah.
All right, good luck. U-R-Q-U-I, Z as in zebra, A, but there's more. I have 2 last names, so there's a hyphen, and it's L-E-I, B as in boy, I-N, at oaklandnet.com.
Thank you.
If anybody wants to go over that again, they can find me after.
Thank thank you, y'all. I did want you to know your team here, okay? But go ahead. You got a couple more questions, so y'all go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing too, that our community resource officers come to every one of our Grand Lake Neighbors meetings. Third Wednesday at 7 o'clock right here. So please come and join us. So there were 2 questions right here, yeah. And I'm gonna get her first hand.
Hi, I'm Deborah Chaplin from Walker Avenue. And so a few years ago, the Oakland police didn't have the best of reputations. There were lots of issues. And just even before you got here, we went through a string of chiefs. I'm just wondering, what are your plans to change the culture in the police department?
You know, I understand that. I think all these officers who have lived through these storms, you know, you got to give them a lot of credit. Now, there are for sure history, but my plan, history is behind us. Okay? There is a new beginning. These officers and the men and women of the Oakland Police Department are ready to move forward. So this is the plan. We are committed to being the best of the best, and we are going to only hire the best of the best. We're only going to keep the best of the best. We're only going to promote the best of the best. And that is my commitment to you, and I will tell you, and I believe I can be your spokesperson on this. But from what I know, that when I got here, I will tell you, these men and women who, like I said, have lived through this storm, they are just as put out by that history as you would be or I am. They are tired of that. That is not who they are. I'm here to tell you as well that these men and women I will stand with, and they need to be supported, they need to be encouraged, they need a leader who will stand with them, but they also know this, and you need to know this, and you can Google me and find out that I come to the table with a track record. I will stand by and be their #1 cheerleader. I do not suffer foolishness. I won't accept it, I won't tolerate it, and nor will they. These men and women spend most of their time trying to get a leader to take action. Okay? And right now they have that, and so all I can tell you is full throttle ahead. We're moving ahead, and it's a new day, and I'm very proud of it.
Hi, I'm Amy Hallio. I live on Warfield Avenue. I'm a physician. I work for La Clinica de la Raza, so hope you know about our community network. My question is, what is the status of the federal monitor overseeing OPD at this time?
Okay, fair question. Oakland Police have been under federal oversight for 14 years. It is the longest standing federal oversight in the history of the country. And we are indeed in our 14th year. During the 14-year process, we had over 50 tasks that we were mandated under a federal judge to prove that we had reformed. Tasks such as how we train, tasks such as how discipline is done, tasks associated with how we do police reports. There are 50 of them. As I come into Oakland today, there are 3 of those 50 tasks that are out or still remain. We are very close to crossing the finish line. In working with the federal monitor, meeting with the federal judge, working with the federal monitoring team, we have a very defined, step-by-step, granular plan on what it is going to take for us to get the sign off on the compliance. Okay, so we're very close, but we're not over the finish line. Okay, I know we will get there.
Hi, my name is Janine Wallet. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you.
And thank you all of the officers for being here this evening.
They're great.
The two questions I had were just answered, so I'm going to make an offer. I represent one of the many Oakland peace builders, the people who teach peace building skills in community. And one of my visions that I've had for decades, I've lived here 35 years, is to see officers, possibly out of uniform, sit side by side with the most vulnerable communities that are the most afraid of police and learn peace building skills together that we teach in community. And so this is my first invitation, and I'll be back to offer that kind of thing so that we really can feel like one community.
Right. We are, I think we do even some peace circles. I think some communities have already established peace circles, and I know that, have you ever been to a peace circle? Okay, no, not yet. Well, you might, because you just met somebody who's going to be invited. But yes, you know, yeah. Great, we'll get your name. And we are actually doing other different types of training. But I want to tell y'all something, because words matter. You know, words count. And a lot of people don't know this, but under legislative law, we are actually peace officers. We are peace officers. We are police, but if you go to the statute to see where our powers are, we are defined as peace officers. So, thank you, and appreciate that. We'll follow up with the name, okay?
Hello, hi. Pamela Drake with the Lakeshore Business Improvement District, and we've met. But it's great that you're all here, and the questions have been really good. I'm going to ask a very specific question, and Sergeant Abel knows what it is. You have worked with us really well this week, dealing with a mentally deranged homeless person who's been really threatening people and making the lives of our business people miserable for a few months now. And I'm really glad that you're here doing that, and I just need to know, what are we going to be able to do to keep that up, because we do believe he'll be back shortly, and we can't have our businesses destroyed on our streets. So thank you.
Thank you for bringing it up, and for those of you who do not know necessarily what this question is, I'm going to lay the groundwork for you and then turn it over to the sergeant for a more specific response. The business community here in the Lakeshore area has a person who apparently does suffer from mental health issues, but his demonstration of that mental health problem right now is one of menacing patrons who come to do business in the Lakeshore business area. And the menacing is troubling. And so, of course, police department are the first responders to those issues, but we're also very limited in our abilities to intervene, especially with those who suffer with mental illness. It's not against the law to be mentally ill, but it is against the law to indeed menace. And so it's these difficult balances. But we do know the specific person, and I am going to give it to Sergeant Felber to address it.
Good to see you again, Pamela. Thank you. So I had an excellent opportunity, thanks to Mr. Guillen here. He implemented a meeting with our local merchants on Lakeshore. It was an excellent opportunity for me to meet and coordinate with a lot of people I hadn't met and really get down to a specific location and what their needs were. And one of the things that was expressed of primary concern in the Lakeshore merchants community area was a gentleman, unfortunately, who suffers from mental illness and is homeless. A very important thing with the Oakland Police Department is that we do understand that homelessness and mental illness is a social issue, and these folks are our neighbors. And as such, we try and deal with them with the utmost compassion and provide them with resources so that they can help themselves, better themselves, become productive members for our community like they should be. So, but sometimes, occasionally, a challenge arises when these folks, like all of us, are required to live within our applicable laws of our city, and some do not. Sadly, this individual chose not to. As a result, he found himself involved in some criminal activity along the corridor, which resulted in a stay-away order, which was ordered by the court. So to explain this, because there was some confusion initially on what a stay-away order is versus a restraining order, is if somebody has a restraining order, that restraining order is a court order. All of these are issued by the courts. Typically are for an individual. So if I had a restraining order, a person would have to stay a particular distance ordered by the court away from me. A stay-away order is different. Stay-away order is actually a location. So certain individuals, subject to the court, and what they specify, it could be a distance of immediate or several hundred yards, have to stay away from a particular location. Now, taking into consideration, the courts do, is that this is a significant depravity of people's civil liberties. To actually tell somebody you can no longer go to this area or you will be subject to arrest. So courts do not take this lightly. Unfortunately, this gentleman was involved in a felony activity involving one of the local business members, and as a result, the court ordered a 100-yard, 300-foot stay-away order from our local Chipotle business. Despite this order, as we learned during this community meeting, he knowingly and intentionally continued to violate the court order. Now, this came to my attention at our merchants meeting, and I spoke with many of the other merchants after the meeting who had a general consensus that unfortunately not only was he violating the court order, but he also continued to be hostile and violent. So it's an issue that we had to immediately address. Now, taking into consideration, our compassion for the situation, this gentleman, we had officers go and contact him immediately. He was in the area during our meeting, and we ensured that he understood the terms of his court order. And he stated that he did. So this is our attempt to mediate with this gentleman, be reasonable with him, request that he be reasonable with us and the court's order to vacate the area as ordered. Unfortunately, he did not. We received citizen complaints that he was still in the area, causing issues with customers, obstructing the business. As a result, I partnered with the community. Many of you were kind enough to call me, give me his location, and as a result, he was actually taken into custody for a violation of that court order quite safely because we knew where he was. So it was simply done. It was an excellent partnership by everybody involved, but it doesn't stop there. So this gentleman, he's in custody for a misdemeanor crime. It's not a high-level offense like a felony. It's above an infraction, but it's not quite a felony. He is, of course, subject to probation as a result of the assault. So the court will frown upon his being taken into custody for violating the order which got him on probation. But nevertheless, he's still going to become a member of our community. So we are in contact with his probation officer, and we're trying to deliver him resources. Because when I do talk to other members of the community, and even the pastor here, they describe him as, he's not always a bad guy. But when he has his moments, he can become quite hostile. So our goal is to deliver this gentleman the resources that he needs, but at the same time, we have to couple that with he has to obey the local laws and ordinances, especially the ones that the court have set upon him. Now, we have dealt with some situations where subjects just chronically refuse to obey the court order. And in these situations, we have to take a more deliberate path to the judge. And so what we do is if this gentleman gets out again and he's arrested again, then Officer Dondero is going to build essentially a case file on him. And judges tend to frown upon their knowingly being ignored for their court orders. They don't like that. And typically after a third arrest, we'll deliver it specifically with our criminal investigation division to the judge and the district attorney and explain to them the severity of the situation and what it means to our community members. Judges generally at that point in time will remand subjects for longer periods of time. It's our goal with this gentleman to get him the resources so he doesn't feel that he has to engage in this activity, but we have two roads that we can travel. So we're going to try the resource compassionate one first. If that doesn't work, then we'll have to take the matter on the other road.
Y'all, Venus used to be a prosecutor, so I have a question for you, Venus, because I do know this is a frustration for our community. They call the police, we don't get there in time, the person is gone, that it becomes very repetitive. Venus, in the state of Washington, and I would assume around the country, we have the misdemeanor in your presence rule. Is that the situation here with the stay away? Do we have to witness it in order to take action?
So in order for an officer to make an arrest on a misdemeanor in the state of California, they actually have to have the citizen there present who witnessed the misdemeanor happening. So unlike a felony, where you actually don't need the physical witness present at that time to make the arrest, but what I would suggest We have these handy dandy smartphones that a lot of us do have, and so they stamp dates and times and location. Now, I'm not necessarily encouraging you to walk up and video and film and agitate perhaps the situation further or put yourself in danger, but if you from a safe distance can perhaps get a picture or a video, especially on a kind of a busy street, if you're, maybe I would advise standing across the street from the Chipotle. Those things can be used, like the sergeant said, to kind of further build a case and the independent evidence needed. So,
those were good questions. I know there were a lot of other people.
Hi.
Okay. I'm Terry Albert. I live on Merritt Avenue, kind of up on the hill overlooking the lake. I've had a couple of burglaries in our building. My concern is that, particularly the second burglary, police didn't come for 2.5 days. I also am concerned about some of the policies around Lake Merritt, particularly on the weekends, that are being broken and not taken care of. I have been in touch by email to our council member as well as the Park District, Park and Rec. I have called the police a number of times with no response. In fact, I've been told that there really is nobody at all monitoring Lake Merritt, and I think because Lake Merritt is such a jewel to our city, and because of the changes that have been made around Lake Merritt, more and more people are using the lake and not using it with care, shall I say. Right. And there's been a lot of disturbance of the peace as well. In the matter of the burglary as well as the area of Lake Merritt, I'm wondering, at the times that I've called the police, I have been told that there is no response unless there's blood involved, which is actually quite disturbing to me. Is there, I don't know, I guess in the mayor's office, for example, or what is being done? Is your force going to be reinforced, shall we say? Are you going to be able to hire more police to be able to take care of our district? Because it doesn't seem to be being taken care of at this time.
Right. Did you want to speak? Go ahead, Councilman.
Go ahead and answer first.
Okay. Yeah, because it is going to be tied to that. All right. This is disconcerting for you. It's disconcerting for me as the chief of the department. I have 7 goals for our agency. One of those 7 is to improve response time. Now, here's our reality. So let's just start with what the reality is. The reality is our call for service load. In other words, to use words you would be able to get your head around. When you call 911, that goes, a person who answers that call is called a call taker. The call taker generates what we would say a call for service. So it goes into your 911 system. It is handed over to a dispatcher who gets on a radio and dispatches an officer. Okay? There are 500,000 calls for service into the Oakland Communications Center. 500,000 a year. All right. We only have so many people who can answer that phone. Not too long ago, we had 62 calls in at the very same time. We don't have 62 people to answer that phone. It is disturbing that someone could call in and not even have the phone picked up, okay? Then you have the officers out here trying to handle the calls for service. It is handled just almost like a triage in a hospital. So those calls for service that are coming in around the clock, they are triaged. So we take the first officers available to go out are the ones that are going to be going to calls involving bodily harm or risk of threat to the person. Unfortunately, burglary is a property crime. So we triage it. So officers' first responsibility will be those in which a person or people could be injured. So we have only so many officers out there to take those calls. So these officers you see right here, these officers are not in the 911 queue. In other words, when that call comes in and it's a burglary, these officers are not going to be responding to the 911. These officers here, their mission is to try to stop the burglary to begin with, so that if we can keep it from happening, that it's out of the night. It's a way of reducing the 911 impacts. But those are your challenges right now. And what my challenge is as a chief is to say, well, you've given me so many officers, I have so many dispatchers, how can I reshuffle this so that we can better serve you and you don't wait forever? So when you wait for 2 days and then the officer shows up, this officer right here shows up at your door, you're pretty unhappy. And you express that to this officer, and he or she has been going call to call to call to call, and the very first thing that they are greeted with is wah. And I also have a responsibility to try to reduce that impact on them as well. So, Councilmember, we want to talk about budget because it all ties into budget.
Thank you, Chief. And so, Terry, I'm really sorry. I've gotten your emails, and I'm sorry about what you've gone through. I have also done calls about Lake Merritt specifically around the weekends and some of the activities that's happening around the lake. I think most people generally like the activity around the lake, but after a while, especially with some of the noise issues and trash issues and people parking their cars actually on the pergola, it does become taxing for the neighbors. That said, as I understand it, Captain Hamilton has said that we're going to start getting the officers on bikes patrolling the lake again for the summer. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm hoping that that will be a resource to sort of help deal with some of these constant issues you experience on the weekend, particularly as it heats up. The larger question around policy that was raised is that currently, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have 753 officers. So budgeted for 794, but there's 40 vacancies currently. In the proposed budget that the mayor put out, there's a proposal to hire another 50 officers to keep us at that range, just under 800. And that would be in the second year of the budget. Now that's up for debate currently at the city council. And, you know, quite often a lot of folks who want to see increased officers' presence, for example, their voice doesn't always show up at the city council. So if you are concerned about public safety and making sure we get to our authorized strength of 797, I would encourage you to email not only myself, but the rest of the council members and the mayor to let them know how you feel about the numbers where we are currently. People say that for a city of our size, some people I've heard about 1,200 to about 900. And we're hovering just around 800 currently. That number, doesn't really change where we are currently. So you won't see much of improvement because we're dealing generally with attrition, replacing officers that are retiring or leaving or separating for whatever reason. And we lose about 6 to 7 officers a month in that realm.
Thank you very much for that. Calls for service, we don't really staff a police department based on population size, because you can look at another city and look and say, well, look at that city, they're a comparable size city. Y'all, you need to look at the call for service load. So we are a city of higher violence, therefore we have more calls for service, and that's really how you want to look at it. So what is the call for service load on the community? Fair questions, excellent questions.
Hi, good evening, Chief. Welcome to Oakland.
Thank you.
And welcome back, Ms. Johnson. My name is Julian Blount. I'm retired from the Eastern Region's office. I live just up the street. And I'm actually just a proxy tonight. I was asked to relay a question from several neighbors, and they're obviously parents. They're wondering where there are safe places for kids to go after school or when they're not in school. And we're talking about teens and preteens in particular. You don't want to send a 12-year-old to Starbucks, obviously.
We have a police activity league, and it's located somewhere that I went to, but I don't remember. It's East Oakland. Okay, y'all talk.
Okay, that's a very good question, and so I'm not sure if you were here when I first began and started really talking about addressing the root causes around why we have public safety challenges. And if you look at the data statewide, the individuals unfortunately committing crimes are younger and younger. There are 12 and 13-year-olds at juvenile hall for committing strong arm robberies. Those are 7th and 8th grade children, right? And so safe alternatives, healthy alternatives, safe environments for children, parks, recreation centers, playgrounds, jobs are the things that youth need. And so a city or a community has to invest in those types of resources, right? So we have libraries. Unfortunately, though, they close at 5 p.m. during the week. And the challenge is, what are we doing with the children during the evenings, right? When some of the activity seems to be at its highest. What are we doing with the kids on the weekend? Only some libraries in Oakland are open on Saturdays. But again, looking at the evening activities. So starting the first Friday in July, we will have 2 sites, one in East Oakland and one in West Oakland. It's called Friday Nights in the Park. In East Oakland, it's going to be at Arroyo Park. And in West Oakland, it's going to be at Hoover Elementary School. If you're interested in volunteering, contributing, whatever it may be, we would definitely welcome that. And what it is, an alternative for kids to have a safe place to be on a Friday evening. Now, would I love to see that ramped up? Absolutely. This is the time for budget discussion. So again, I would urge you, if you're looking for those things, contact your council members, contact the mayor's office, and come to the budget meetings if you're able to in the evenings and express the things you'd like to see.
I just wanted to give you 2 concrete suggestions. We have the FM Smith Rec Center on Park Boulevard is one place. Lincoln Rec Center is in Chinatown's downtown area. The rec center is open from 7 a.m. till about 7 at night. And the basketball courts that are just newly refurbished by Kevin Durant and the Warriors today, actually, are in operation, and those basketball courts and that an activity space, it's a safe space in downtown for youth. So I would recommend that, and I'd be happy to give you additional resources for youth, community centers, whatever you'd like. So I just want to point out we have time for about 3 or 4 more questions. It's right around 8, but the Chief and Venus have agreed to stick around for a little bit longer for a couple more questions. So Eric?
My name is Carol King. I live on Long Ridge, and my question is, what is the role of the police, if any, in monitoring and preventing problems in buildings that are like the buildings where the ghost ship disaster occurred?
So I will say this. I just came on in January, and so I was not here during that time period. And fire is not per se under my portfolio, although it is safety, and I do clearly understand that. However, it was a large enough issue and task that it actually needed to be put under someone else in the office for them to be able to focus on instead of kind of all I'm focusing on. The police department, I think we are working on coming up with new policies, new training for a more coordinated effort between the police department and the fire department, right? Because one, a lot of the systems are antiquated, and so you have to go to 3 or 4 different systems to check if there was this kind of violation on this day at what time. I gotta go back to the police department and check to see if this happened at this day and this time, instead of all of the systems speaking to one another. technology updates very fast, as we know, and unfortunately government sometimes doesn't keep up and is not as fast as updating their technology. So the fire department is actually revamping their entire internal system now to actually communicate better within themselves and with other city agencies. I don't want to speak to and misspeak about the responsibilities of what the police department's role is. I know the city administrator is still working on that, but I'll at least give it to the chief to answer that part.
I can tell you this, we are not code enforcement officers. Okay, so when you're talking about businesses and their codes, whether they're up to codes, we're not code enforcement officers. We're not trained to be code enforcement officers. It's not our responsibility. It's not in our academy. We are not code enforcement officers, nor are we fire inspectors. So we don't enforce the regulatory side of those laws. So that's where our position is. And Councilmember?
Yeah. Let me just add that in the mayor's budget, I've been pushing for code enforcement. It's a big issue for me, and there are 6 additional positions in the budget that's in its current configuration that's going through changes that we're contemplating, as well as 20 fire inspector positions that are proposed in the budget as well. So just wanted to give you a direct answer to that.
We have time for 2 more questions. Okay, 1, 2. Yeah, me too.
Hi, my name is Keela Deal. I'm a neighbor up on Mandana, and I'm also here representing, among other people, the Splash Pad newsletter, a local newsletter. So this is before your time, but there is a general consensus out there that in an effort to reach this magic 797, that there was a push for quantity rather than quality, and that a lot of the standards for hiring, no offense to anyone present, that a lot of the standards, physical, written, background, all that stuff were really lowered and compromised in an effort to just get the numbers up, right? And I guess I'm asking if that's true, and B, if so, how you plan to change that. And there is definitely kind of a PR issue out there in the public that's what happened, that we lowered standards, and then just in terms of abilities and even background checks and that kind of thing have been compromised in an attempt to bring the numbers up.
It's very fair. I heard that too. So I can't speak to that, but what I can do is tell you and speak to me. I can tell you about my leadership, my positions on it. If you want to hire the best of the best, you don't lower standards, you raise them. Winners are attracted to elite teams. It's just that simple. And I think most of us who are in law enforcement, we tend to be athletic, and I have always been an athlete all my life. And so there's that sense of that when you want the best of the best, you make it where it's difficult to get on. And then your best team comes forward. Your A players come forward. So the issue isn't lowering the standards, indeed you raise the standards. And so that's exactly what my position is. I would rather run with 10 officers who are all-stars than 100 who shouldn't even have the ability to wear the patch, the badge, or the gun. It's not happening. And it does occur under screening and knowing what you're looking for. And I meant it when I said that I am committed to only putting the best of the best on the bench, and I will cut a bench if you fall short. Okay? So, and I think they know it. And I don't want to be that way. I just simply want to be clear about what you can expect. And when people know that the bar is high, we raise it. And these men and women that I see today are meeting that and exceeding that. But you're asked about the future, and that is my position. Okay?
Hi, my name is Garrett Gonzalez. I live over on Cheney Ave, and I'm also representing the Cheney Ave Facebook group. We've seen some increased crime, armed robbery on our street, a break-in, And the neighborhood wants to know what we can do to help prevent those crimes and help solve those crimes, and what you need as a force to work better together. And any tips would be much appreciated. Thank you.
That's a great question. Definitely one of the things that I'm a huge preponderance of is collaboration with the community. I've tackled some pretty amazing challenges in my career, which are predominantly in East Oakland, based on these thousands and thousands of eyes. With the force multiplier, and our idea is to actually battle crime. And your Facebook community is actually one of the best starts there. So unfortunately, there will be folks in neighborhoods who are going to become victims of robberies or auto burglaries are prolific right now. Well, one of the approaches that I've used that's worked quite successfully is I find our block monitor. And they go through all the information in their block, and then they bring out evidence of criminal activity. And when they get that activity, they're kind of the filter for us, and they present that activity to their corresponding serial officer, which for like Beat 16 would be Don Darrow. So if a burglary or a robbery occurs, we'll take the report. Sometimes people have pretty tricky surveillance systems. They're like, we won't always see. And they'll have evidence of the crime, but we don't know exists. And when they forward that to this gentleman here, and then he collaborates and sends it to Officer Gondero, and we couple it to CID, you'd be surprised that a lot of these folks in the neighborhood that are committing crimes that we can identify and put out warrants. Which is why when we identify crews who commit robberies or burglaries and we go out and we arrest them, you get this massive dip in crime. Because it would seem like there's a prolific amount of individuals involved in these crimes, but oftentimes it's a crew that can do a lot of damage in a short amount of time. So the answer really is collaborating with you folks in here. A lot of people like to use Facebook. Some people like to use Nextdoor. But for everybody in this room that likes to use these types of systems, and the young lady back there who had the 2 burglaries in your area, I'd love to get with these community leaders and talk more detail on how we can make this collaboration occur and how we can use you, the community, as a force multiplier for our little resources in the department. You'd be surprised at how much we can get done if we just simply have the information and communicate.
I just want to add, I was a prosecutor here in Alameda County for 8 years. That's where I started my career. And so what I also noticed is when I would prosecute cases, I would obviously have a lot of contact with witnesses or victims. And so it's always also just really important to, and I know there are simple things, earbuds in the ear, phone out, being distracted, not watching a door that closes behind you. Little things that sometimes I think we forget and take for granted. I do myself, right? Having your keys out and ready to either go in the house or get in your car, vice versa. So just being extra vigilant and also reminding people, because they target things that they think they can easily target, right? Don't leave things on your car seat. I know sometimes they break out windows and don't take anything, which is so frustrating. But just at least in the moments and places where you can, just being extra vigilant and being mindful and reminding each other of those things also does help.
Keep your purse. Don't walk down the street with your purse, and please don't walk down the street with your iPhone and all of those things, okay? So, and give it up if someone comes to you and wants your stuff. Give it to them.
Please, before we break, I wanted to make sure that there's a lot of contact information and emails that were thrown out here today. My office will be sending out an email to everyone. Richard in the back has our sign-in sheet, so please sign in and give us your information, your email address. We'll be happy to send you notes from this meeting and some of the information you hear today. So please join me in thanking our officers and our chief and Venus for their efforts. Let me also say that we talked about the budget and advocacy on the budget. We're having a community meeting on May 25th. That's happening at the Lincoln Rec Center, at our new basketball courts you can go visit. May 25th at 7 o'clock, I believe. And if you want to get into the details of the budget, what we fund, how we fund it, the decisions we make, I invite you to be there at that meeting. So please come on out. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much. The next Grand Lake Neighbors meeting is June 21st in that room right there. And we'll have the Oakland Public Ethics Commission. So come join